What the hell is wrong with WWE management? Are they completely out of their minds letting these absolute monsters run wild every single week? Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker just delivered the most brutal, most sickening beatdown we've seen in months, and their target? The unstoppable Jacob Fatu. This isn't just wrestling anymore, this is straight up assault, and WWE is sitting back doing nothing about it. You want to know what's really grinding my gears? This is the third time this month that these two psychopaths have jumped someone from behind like a couple of cowards. Remember when they absolutely destroyed Cody Rhodes backstage? Or when they put GUSO through that announce table for no reason? And now they've set their sights on the one man who's been carrying this company on his shoulders, Jacob Fatu. Let me paint you the picture of what went down, because if you missed this, you missed something that's going to change everything in WWE. Picture this: Jacob Fatu, fresh off his incredible performance last week where he single-handedly dismantled 3 opponents, is walking through the backstage area, minding his own business. The cameras are following him as he's heading to his locker room, probably thinking about his upcoming title shot, when bam! Out of nowhere, Bronson Reed comes charging like a freight train and absolutely levels Fatu with a shoulder block that would make a linebacker jealous. Fatu goes down hard, hitting the concrete floor with a sickening thud that echoed through the entire arena. But wait, it gets worse. Before Jacob can even process what just happened, here comes Bron Breakker, and this maniac starts stomping away at Fatu's ribs like he's trying to cave them in. The sound of those boots connecting with Jacob's ribs was absolutely disgusting. You could hear it through the microphones, through the crowd noise, through everything. These aren't just wrestlers anymore, they're straight up criminals. And where was security? Where was management? Nowhere to be found, as usual. But here's where it gets really sick. Bronson Reed, this 330-pound monster, decides that beating down Jacob Fatu on the ground isn't enough. No, this psychopath picks up Jacob Fatu, all 270 pounds of pure muscle, and launches him into a steel equipment crate. The impact was so violent that the crate actually dented. We're talking about a steel crate that probably weighs more than most of us, and it got damaged from the sheer force of Jacob's body hitting it. Jacob Fatu, the same man who's been called indestructible, who's survived wars with Roman Reigns, who's gone through tables, chairs, and hell itself, is laying there motionless. His face is contorted in pain, blood starting to trickle from his forehead where he hit that crate. And what do Reed and Breakker do? They start laughing. These sick individuals are actually enjoying watching one of the greatest wrestlers of our generation suffer. Bron Breakker, the second-generation superstar who should know better, who comes from wrestling royalty, grabs a steel chair from nearby and starts setting it up. At this point, everyone watching knows something terrible is about to happen. The referee who finally showed up is begging them to stop, pleading with them to show some mercy, but these two are beyond reason. They're in full predator mode. What happens next is going to haunt Jacob Fatu for the rest of his career. Bronson Reed hoists Jacob up one more time, positions him perfectly, and delivers the most devastating tsunami splash we've ever seen, but not onto the mat, not onto the announce table, but onto that steel chair that Breakker had set up. The sound of Jacob's spine hitting that chair was absolutely horrific. Medical personnel immediately rushed to the scene, but the damage was already done. Jacob Fatu, the man who's been unstoppable for months, the man whom many consider the future of WWE, is being stretchered out of the arena. His eyes are glazed over, he's barely conscious, and you can see the pure agony written across his face. Meanwhile, Reed and Breakker are standing there like a couple of vultures, admiring their handiwork, completely satisfied with the destruction they've caused. But here's what's really eating me alive about this whole situation: this isn't the first time, and it sure as hell won't be the last. These two have been on an absolute rampage for weeks, targeting the top stars in WWE, systematically taking out anyone who stands in their way. They took out Cody Rhodes when he was preparing for his championship defense. They hospitalized GUSO right before his big storyline with his family. And now they've set their sights on Jacob Fatu. What's WWE management doing about this? Absolutely nothing. Adam Pearce comes out every week with his fake concern, talking about investigations and appropriate action, but where's the action? These two maniacs are running around backstage like they own the place, attacking legends, champions, and fan favorites, and management is treating it like it's just another storyline. This isn't storyline anymore, this is real violence, real injuries, real careers being ended. Jacob Fatu didn't deserve this. He's one of the hardest working, most dedicated performers in this company. He shows up every single night, puts his body on the line for our entertainment, and this is how he gets repaid? By getting jumped by two cowards who can't win fights fair and square? And let's talk about the bigger picture here because this goes way deeper than just one attack. Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker aren't just random attackers, they're being systematic about this. Look at their targets: Cody Rhodes, GUSO, and now Jacob Fatu. These are all top-tier performers, all fan favorites, all people who represent the heart and soul of WWE. This isn't coincidence, this is a calculated assault on everything we love about professional wrestling. Bronson Reed, this monster who came from NXT with so much promise, has turned into nothing more than a bully. Remember when he first arrived? Fans were excited to see what he could do, how he could contribute to the main roster. Instead, he's chosen to align himself with violence and chaos. His tsunami splash, which should be a finishing move used in competition, has become a weapon of mass destruction used to injure innocent people backstage. And Bron Breakker? Don't even get me started on this disappointment. This man comes from the legendary Steiner family, a lineage of wrestlers who built their careers on hard work, dedication, and respect for the business. His uncle Scott Steiner, his father Rick Steiner, they were tough, they were intense, but they had honor. What would they think of Bron using their family name to justify these cowardly attacks? The Steiner name used to mean something in this business. It represented strength, it represented toughness, but it also represented doing things the right way. Bron has taken that legacy and absolutely destroyed it with these backstage ambushes. He's turned the Steiner name into something associated with cowardice and cheap shots. But here's what's really getting under my skin: the way these two operate shows they're not just mindless brutes. They're smart about their attacks. They wait for their targets to be alone, they make sure no cameras are around initially, they strike when security is distracted. This isn't random violence, this is premeditated assault. Take tonight's attack on Jacob Fatu, for example. They knew exactly when he'd be walking through that corridor. They knew security would be focused on the in-ring action. They had their escape route planned. This level of coordination suggests someone is pulling the strings, someone is orchestrating these attacks from behind the scenes. Who's giving them their targets? Who's providing them with intel on where these superstars will be and when they'll be vulnerable? Because there's no way these two figured all this out on their own. Someone with access to backstage schedules, someone who knows the ins and outs of WWE's operations, is feeding them information. And while we're asking questions, let's talk about the medical response time. How is it that every single time one of these attacks happens, medical personnel takes forever to show up? Jacob Fatu was laying there for what felt like an eternity before anyone with medical training arrived on the scene. Is WWE deliberately understaffing their medical team? Are they cutting corners on wrestlers' safety to save money? The fact that Jacob Fatu had to be stretchered out of the arena should be a huge red flag for WWE management. This isn't a kayfabe injury that'll heal up by next week, this is a man whose career could be in jeopardy because two psychopaths decided to use him as a human punching bag. And let's not forget the psychological impact this is having on the entire roster. How many wrestlers are looking over their shoulders now, wondering if they're next? How many are afraid to walk alone backstage? How many are considering requesting extra security or even leaving the company altogether because they don't feel safe? The locker room morale has to be at an all-time low right now. When wrestlers can't even feel safe in their own workplace, when they have to worry about being ambushed every time they turn a corner, how can they focus on putting on the best performances for the fans? This affects everyone, from the main event stars down to the newest developmental talent. Speaking of the fans, we're the ones getting screwed over the most in all of this. We invest our time, our money, our emotional energy into following these wrestlers' careers, and then we have to watch helplessly as they get injured by a couple of cowards who don't have the guts to face anyone in a fair fight. Jacob Fatu was supposed to be in several upcoming storylines that fans were incredibly excited about. His potential feud with Roman Reigns, his chase for championship gold, his development as one of the top faces in the company, all of that could be derailed now because of this attack. How is that fair to us as fans who've been following his journey? But here's what really shows how broken WWE's system is: after each of these attacks, what happens? Nothing. Reed and Breakker just disappear backstage, probably celebrate in their locker room, and then show up the next week like nothing happened. There are no suspensions, no fines, no consequences whatsoever. If this happened in any other workplace, in any other company, these two would be arrested, fired, and probably facing lawsuits. But in WWE, it's just Tuesday. The lack of accountability is absolutely staggering, and frankly, it's insulting to everyone who works there and everyone who watches. The message WWE is sending is crystal clear: if you're willing to be violent enough, if you're willing to cross enough lines, you can do whatever you want without consequences. That's not just bad business, that's dangerous precedent that could encourage even more violence from other wrestlers who think this is an acceptable way to get ahead. And let's talk about the long-term implications of all this violence. How many more careers need to be ended before someone in management grows a backbone and takes action? How many more wrestlers need to be hospitalized before WWE realizes they have a serious problem on their hands? The wrestling business has always been physical, always been intense, but there used to be an unspoken code about not deliberately trying to injure your fellow performers outside of sanctioned matches. That code has been completely shattered by Reed and Breakker, and WWE's inaction is essentially endorsing this new culture of backstage violence. What's next? Are we going to see wrestlers bringing weapons backstage? Are we going to see full-scale brawls breaking out in catering areas? Are family members going to become targets? Because if WWE doesn't draw a line somewhere, this violence is only going to escalate. The saddest part about Jacob Fatu's attack is that it was completely preventable. WWE had warning signs, they'd seen what Reed and Breakker were capable of with their previous attacks. They could have increased security, they could have issued restraining orders, they could have suspended these two troublemakers before they struck again. Instead, they chose to do nothing, and now one of their most valuable performers is laying in a hospital bed somewhere, probably wondering if his career is over. How do you explain that to his family? How do you explain to his children why daddy got hurt at work because his bosses didn't protect him? Jacob Fatu didn't sign up to be a victim of assault. He signed up to be a professional wrestler, to compete in sanctioned matches under controlled conditions with proper medical supervision. What happened to him today was not professional wrestling, it was a crime. The fans deserve better than this. We deserve to see our favorite wrestlers compete in fair matches, not get ambushed by cowards in parking lots and backstage corridors. We deserve storylines built on athletic competition, not real-life violence and intimidation. WWE needs to make a choice right now. Are they a legitimate sports entertainment company that prioritizes wrestler safety and fair competition, or are they going to continue enabling these attacks until someone gets seriously hurt or worse? Because the path they're on right now leads nowhere good. Every day that Reed and Breakker are allowed to roam free backstage is another day that every wrestler in that company is in danger. Every day that WWE management refuses to take action is another day that their credibility as a responsible employer gets destroyed. The time for half measures and empty promises is over. WWE needs to either arrest these two criminals, ban them from all WWE properties, or admit that they don't care about wrestler safety and face the consequences of that admission. What happened to Jacob Fatu today was disgusting, it was cowardly, and it was completely avoidable. But it's also a wake-up call for everyone who cares about professional wrestling. We can't let this become the new normal. We can't accept violence as entertainment when real people are getting really hurt. The wrestling world is watching WWE's response to this attack very carefully. Their next moves will determine whether they're still a company worth supporting or whether they've completely lost their way. Choose wisely, WWE, because careers, lives, and your entire legacy are hanging in the balance.